I got home earlier than usual that Friday. The office had shut down at 3 for HVAC repairs, something about a failing duct system and a mandatory evacuation. Most of my team bolted as soon as the announcement hit, but I stayed back to finish a few reports, figuring Leah would still be at her yoga class by the time I got home anyway. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed her car was already parked. That was odd. It was just after 4 and her classes never ended before 6. I sat in the car for a moment, takeaway bag on the passenger seat, trying to convince myself maybe class had been canceled. Maybe she came home early. Maybe it was nothing. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. That strange hush. Like the house was holding its breath. Usually, Leah had music playing, oldies, soft jazz, or her favorite lo-fi playlists. If not that, then a cooking video humming in the background or her humming while tidying up. But today? Just silence. Heavy, unnatural silence. The scent hit me next, coffee, strong and fresh. But it wasn't our usual blend. Ours was vanilla-flavored, a little too sweet for my taste, but Leah loved it. This was different, bold, earthy, unfamiliar. The kind of coffee you'd expect in a high-end cafe or maybe brewed by someone with a taste for beans I'd never heard of. I placed the food on the kitchen counter and walked toward the stairs, the hardwood creaking under my steps louder than usual. There was no sound from above. No running water, no hairdryer, no clatter of makeup brushes. Still, I felt a chill. Our bedroom door was half open. That in itself wasn't strange, but something about the way it hung there, slightly ajar, as if someone had slipped out in a hurry, gave me pause. And then I saw it. The scarf. It was draped over the back of the chair by the bed, almost too casually. Deep navy, cashmere maybe. Soft to the touch and unmistakably masculine. Not mine. I didn't own anything that expensive, and I certainly didn't wear cologne that smelled like that, dark, smoky, a little spicy. I stared at it for a moment longer, wondering if I had somehow missed it before. Maybe she had picked it up for me, or maybe it belonged to her brother. But that thought didn't sit right. Leah's brother hadn't visited in weeks. He lived 30 minutes away and rarely dropped by unannounced. The bed behind me was messy, but not in a slept-in way. The comforter was twisted and kicked down toward the footboard, the sheets half-pulled from the mattress. One pillow was on the floor, and there were 2 indentations on the bed, not one. I stepped into the room slowly, my heart beginning to thud harder against my chest. I told myself not to overreact. Maybe she'd been napping. Maybe she'd spilled something and changed the sheets. Maybe, but those maybes were starting to stack up. Then I heard the water running. Faint, rhythmic, unmistakable. I walked toward the bathroom, each step slower than the last. The door was closed, but the faint hiss of the shower echoed through the wood. Steam curled out from the bottom of the door. And on the floor, just outside, lay a pair of boxer briefs. I bent down and picked them up. They weren't mine. Different brand. Different size. And they reeked of that same spicy cologne that clung to the scarf. I stood frozen for a second, boxer briefs in one hand, my other pressed against the door frame for balance. I could feel my breath growing shallow, my head swimming with a dozen conflicting thoughts. Maybe her brother really had stopped by. Maybe he'd needed a shower. Maybe, but again, it didn't track. And then the door creaked open. Leah stepped out wrapped in a towel, hair damp and skin flushed. She froze when she saw me. "Oh," she said, blinking, then forcing a smile. "Hey, you're home early." "Yeah," I replied, my voice flat. I held up the boxers. "You expecting company?" Her eyes flicked to them, then back to my face. She gave a small laugh, too quick, too rehearsed. "Yeah, that's my brother's," she said, brushing past me into the bedroom. "He came by earlier. Gym was closed and he was all sweaty, so I told him he could use our shower. He left in a rush, had dinner plans or something." She said it all like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like it made perfect sense. But something about her tone, her body language, it didn't sit right. "Your brother's in town?" I asked, still standing by the bathroom. She nodded, facing the mirror as she ran a brush through her wet hair. "Yeah. Didn't I tell you? He's back for a few days. Some work thing." "No, you didn't." "Oh," she said, turning to look at me. "Guess I forgot." I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. But inside, something was splintering. It wasn't just the boxers. Or the scarf. Or the bed. It was her. The way she avoided my eyes. The tightness in her voice. The way she closed the bathroom door behind her so fast it didn't have time to fully latch. I walked downstairs without another word. I needed to breathe. To think. To make sense of what I'd just seen. I opened the food and started setting the table like nothing had happened. She came down 10 minutes later wearing her usual sweats and one of my old hoodies, acting like everything was fine. She thanked me for the food, kissed my cheek, and talked about the documentary she wanted to watch after dinner. I nodded. I smiled. I played along. But inside, the doubt had already planted itself. Quiet and precise. That night, as she slept beside me, her breathing steady and soft, I lay wide awake staring at the ceiling. The scarf. The boxers. The scent. And the lie. The next morning, everything looked the same on the surface. Leah was up early, humming while she made toast, sipping her tea like the night before hadn't happened. The scarf was gone from the chair, and the boxers, who knows? Maybe she'd tossed them in the wash or hidden them in the trash. Either way, it was like they'd never existed. Like I had imagined it all. But I hadn't. I knew what I saw. And from that moment on, something in me shifted. I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. My brain, once quick to explain away inconsistencies, began cataloging them instead, every half-truth, every glance at her phone, every new excuse. It was like putting on a different set of lenses. Suddenly, all those little moments from the past few months that hadn't seemed important were now screaming for attention. Leah had been distant for a while. I just hadn't seen it, or maybe I didn't want to. It started with her yoga phase. She signed up for classes at a studio downtown, saying she needed me time and space to unwind. At first, I supported her. Life had been hectic, and if yoga helped her relax, I was all for it. But the classes went from twice a week to 4, then 5. Then she started coming home later and later. At first, she said she was staying after class to chat with friends. Then it was, we went for smoothies. Eventually, she stopped explaining it all. I tried asking once, class run long again? She shrugged. Yeah. You know how it is. Except I didn't. Because even when I offered to pick her up just to be thoughtful, she'd insist she'd already called a ride or was grabbing dinner nearby. Then there was her phone. Always face down. Always silent. Even when it buzzed. She used to laugh at memes with me, send me photos during the day, or scroll side by side with me on the couch. Lately? That stopped. Now, if I came into a room, she'd quickly tuck it into her pocket or flip the screen away. Once I saw a message pop up, same time. It disappeared before I could make out the sender. I said nothing. I should have asked, but I didn't want to hear the answer. It wasn't just the phone. There were other signs too. Her wardrobe changed subtly. More form-fitting clothes. A new perfume she never wore around me. She started dressing up for yoga, of all things. One night, I noticed a new bracelet on her wrist, a simple silver chain with a single charm. Nice, I said. When'd you get that? Oh, she replied too casually, last weekend. Picked it up at the mall with Julie. Julie. Her best friend since college. Safe, reliable Julie. But something about that answer bothered me. Later that night, I sent Julie a message, nothing accusatory, just a quick check-in. Hey, Leah said you two hit the mall last weekend. Hope you had fun. Julie replied a few minutes later. Huh? I've been in Arizona visiting my sister. Just got back this morning. I stared at the message, rereading it, hoping maybe I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't. Leah had lied. I didn't confront her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I needed more than one contradiction. I needed to be sure. That weekend, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went into her car. It was a gray afternoon. She was out again, yoga, of course, and I was left pacing the house. The storm inside me had reached a point where I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed her keys off the hook and headed to the garage, half convincing myself I'd find nothing. The interior was clean, too clean. Leah wasn't the neatest person in the world. Her car was usually cluttered with receipts, water bottles, and half-eaten granola bars. But now? Wiped down. Pristine. The cup holders smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. I popped open the glove compartment and rifled through it. Nothing suspicious, manuals, napkins, her yoga punch card. I moved to the center console. Inside, beneath the charging cables, was a small black pouch. Inside the pouch, a hotel keycard. No logo, no name, just a barcode. Room access, plain and simple. I held it in my hand for a long time, feeling the weight of it. This wasn't something you brought home accidentally. You didn't keep it unless you had a reason. And Leah wasn't in sales. She wasn't meeting clients or booking travel for work. So who was she seeing in a hotel? I didn't need to ask. I already knew the answer. Still, I wasn't ready to confront her. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to hear her deny it, twist it, blame it on me. I needed to be smart. I needed to be sure. So I began my own quiet investigation. Over the next few days, I took notes. Patterns. Times. Excuses. Monday, yoga, out from 5:45 to 8:30. Phone off for part of the time. Came home flushed, hair freshly washed, said the studio was hotter than usual. Wednesday claimed a flat tire delayed her. Showed no signs of car trouble. Her phone buzzed twice in the middle of dinner, she didn't look once. Thursday canceled dinner plans, said she wasn't feeling well. Later that night, I noticed she'd changed into a new pajama set, tags still on. One I hadn't seen before. Each entry chipped away at whatever hope I was clinging to. On Saturday, I trailed her. I know how that sounds. I hate even typing it. But I had to see it with my own eyes. She said she was going to a yoga workshop. 3 hours, she told me. She left around 2 p.m. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. I kept my distance, trying not to think about how ridiculous I felt, like a bad detective in a cheap movie. But I followed her downtown, past the yoga studio and straight to the train station. I watched her park, pull out a small overnight bag from the trunk and walk inside. I didn't follow her in. I didn't need to. A part of me broke right there on the sidewalk. An overnight bag. A train ride. And she hadn't said a word. She came back the next morning, claiming her workshop had run late and she'd crashed at Julie's. I didn't say anything. I just watched her lie again. And I nodded like an idiot. That night, I sat in our living room, everything suddenly looking foreign. The couch where we'd watched movies. The coffee table we'd picked out together. The wedding photo on the mantel. All of it felt like a set. Like I'd stumbled into someone else's house. Someone else's life. And the woman upstairs wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger who wore my wife's face, used her voice, but told me stories that didn't add up. I didn't know when it had started. I didn't know how deep it went. But I knew one thing. Whatever this was, it wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was a pattern. And patterns don't lie. A week passed after the train station. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to, God, did I want to, but I knew it would turn into a shouting match, a mess of tears, half-truths, and maybe even guilt tactics. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable, inescapable proof. Something she couldn't talk her way around. I remembered the old tablet we used to share years ago before we both upgraded our phones. It had been collecting dust in the top drawer of my desk, behind a pile of old receipts and expired insurance cards. She hadn't touched it in ages, which made it the perfect place to start. That night, while she slept peacefully as if nothing in her world was amiss, I pulled it out and booted it up. The battery was nearly dead, but it came to life. My heart raced as I stared at the lock screen. Same passcode as always. She hadn't changed it. Once inside, I navigated through the photos, notes, and browser history. Most of it was old, pictures from vacations we took years ago, recipes, half-written grocery lists. Then I opened the gallery's recently deleted folder and held my breath. There were 5 pictures. Just 5. One of them stopped my heart. It was Leah in our living room, wrapped in someone's arms. A man. Tall, bearded, wearing a dark hoodie. She was laughing, wine glass tilted in one hand, his other hand pressed against her lower back. The date stamp was from 3 weeks ago. The night she said she was at yoga. And the man, Silas. I recognized him instantly. He wasn't a stranger. Silas had once been a guest in our home. We'd met him at a party, some mutual friend's birthday. He was the kind of guy who could make everyone laugh, who always had a story, who wore confidence like cologne. Leah had liked him. I could tell. I remembered the way her eyes followed him, how she'd leaned in when he talked, how she'd laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. When he came over once for dinner, I had chalked it up to friendliness. Leah insisted we were just being hospitable. He's new in town, she had said. Doesn't know many people. Apparently, he knew one. There were more photos. One was a hotel room selfie, Leah and Silas smiling cheek to cheek, the skyline of Chicago visible through the window behind them. Another was of train tickets, clearly screench * Ted from a booking app. 2 seats, one way to Chicago. Booked under his name. Departure date matched the day I saw her at the station. The final photo was of the 2 of them in bed. They weren't doing anything graphic, but it was in * mate, her head resting on his chest, his arm curled around her. Both looked completely at ease, like it was just another Sunday morning. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My body went cold. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was planned. Coordinated. Rehearsed. She had invited him into her home. She had lied with a smile on her face, kissed me while probably still tasting his cologne. And she hadn't stopped. She had kept it going. Multiple meetings. Trips. Pictures. Memories that she made while I sat at home, trusting her, missing her. I backed up the photos to a private folder on my computer. Then I kept digging. I installed recovery software to retrieve deleted messages, hoping I was wrong, hoping I wouldn't find more. But there were emails. Dozens of them. Some short and flirty. Others longer, more emotional. One email read, "You make me feel alive in a way I didn't know I was missing. He doesn't see me anymore. With you, I feel seen." Another, "Train leaves at 2:05. I'll meet you on the platform. Don't be late." Then there was this one from just a few days ago. "I'm scared he knows. He's been quieter lately. Watching me more. We need to be careful." It was confirmation not only that she had lied, but that she knew she was lying. That she knew it was wrong. That she had no intention of stopping unless I made her. I sat in the dark for what felt like hours, staring at the screen, trying to piece together the timeline of my own humiliation. How many times had I kissed her while she was texting him? How many nights had I rolled over in bed while she lay beside me thinking of him? I tried to remember the last time she had looked at me like she used to. I couldn't. By morning, I felt like I had aged 10 years. She woke up smiling, kissed me on the cheek, asked if I wanted pancakes. I said yes. I watched her move around the kitchen in that same sweater I'd bought her last anniversary. The same one she had worn in that photo with him. She didn't even flinch. The proof was undeniable now. She had been cheating. Not just physically, but emotionally in asterisk mately fully. And the worst part? She didn't even seem sorry. Not yet. But she would be. The morning after I uncovered everything, I didn't say a word. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold between my hands, while Leah moved around the house like she had nothing to hide. She was on the phone with someone, maybe Julie, maybe not. Her tone was light, casual, like the weight of what she'd done didn't exist. Every move she made was another crack in the glass. She asked about my day. She offered me toast. She laughed at a joke on her phone. I nodded, replied in clipped sentences, and tried not to stare too long. I was afraid if I did, I'd lose control. I didn't want a scene. Not yet. Not ever if I could help it. There was something about the weight of the truth when you hold it in your hands, when you know and the other person doesn't know you know. It changes the air. The silence feels deeper. Every word they speak sounds like betrayal in real time. I had made my decision the night before. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't confront. I wouldn't give her the opportunity to spin it, cry, or crawl toward sympathy. I wasn't going to fight for clarity. I already had it. That afternoon, after she left for work drinks, I pulled out the old duffel bag from the closet and packed a few essentials, just what I needed. Some clothes, my passport, laptop, charger, toothbrush. I left behind the clutter of married life, the framed photos, the souvenirs from our anniversary trip, the wedding album tucked under the bed. I took what was mine and left the rest like evidence at a crime scene. I placed the tablet on the kitchen counter, open and unlocked, displaying the photo of her and Silas in our living room. I didn't write a note. I didn't need to. By sunset, I was checked into a hotel across town, a business hotel, nothing fancy, just quiet and anonymous. It overlooked a park. Clean sheets. No memories. That night, for the first time in what felt like months, I fell asleep without tossing. The next day, I made calls. I started with a friend of mine, Nathan, who'd gone through a rough divorce 2 years earlier. He didn't ask questions when I said I needed an attorney. He just texted me a number. She's sharp. Quiet. Gets things done. Perfect. When I met with the attorney, Linda Dorsey, clean-cut and efficient, she looked over the file I had compiled. I had organized everything, photos, emails, screensh asterisk TS, timestamps. I watched her eyes narrow slightly as she read through it all. "This is solid," she said, tapping one of the photos with a pen. "You'll have options." "I don't want drama," I said. "I just want out." She nodded. "Understood. We'll protect your interests. You've got leverage here, and we can use it quietly. Give me a couple of days to draft everything." After that meeting, I felt like I'd stepped out of a fog. The world still stung, but at least it was moving again. Meanwhile, Leah had started texting. It began with a casual, "Where are you? Everything okay?" Then, "You didn't come home. Are you mad?" Then, the shift. Did I do something wrong? I ignored them all. The silence drove her nuts. I could tell. By the next evening, she was calling dozens of times. When I didn't answer, the voicemails started. Her tone changed with each one. First, confusion. Then concern. Then frustration. Then panic. I didn't answer a single one. Eventually, she stopped calling. For a few hours. Then came the emails. "Kevin, I don't know what's going on. Please talk to me. I'm worried. If something's wrong, we can fix it. I'm sorry if I said something. Just come home. Please, please don't do this. I'm scared." I deleted them without responding. 3 days after I left, I returned to the house briefly. Midday, when I knew she'd be gone. I moved quietly, collected the rest of my clothes, boxed up my tools from the garage, grabbed my spare keys and double-checked my files. I left no note, no trace. Just a new emptiness. The bedroom smelled faintly like her perfume. I didn't flinch. As I stepped out the front door, I paused, locking it behind me, and took one last look at the house we'd made a life in. It didn't feel like mine anymore, just walls. The hotel became a temporary base. Every day I made small moves. Bank account adjustments, separating utilities, opening a P.O. box. Clean, strategic. No fire, no mess. Just quiet, deliberate change. I expected rage from her. I expected a meltdown. But what came next was something different. Desperation. On the fourth day after I left, Leah showed up at my hotel. I'd been careful, paid in cash, used my middle name for the booking, even kept my car parked a block away. But I had underestimated her determination. It was just after noon when the front desk rang the room. "Mr. Kellerman," the clerk said hesitantly, "there's a woman here asking to see you. Says it's urgent." I didn't even need to ask who it was. I told them not to let her up. That afternoon I got the first handwritten note. Slid under my door, on folded stationery I recognized from the desk in our old guest room. "I know you're hurting. I don't blame you for leaving. But please don't throw everything away. Can we just talk? 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. I'll wait at O'Malley's tomorrow, 6 p.m. I didn't go. She followed it with messages, long, emotional ones. Apologies, scattered memories, desperate bargains. Her tone shifted constantly, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, sometimes childlike in its confusion. "I'm sorry for what I did. I don't even know who I was during those months. I was lonely, Kevin. You were always working, always distant. I didn't want to fall for anyone else, it just happened. I didn't mean for it to become what it did. Then, you think you're perfect? You think you never made mistakes? You shut down emotionally. You left me long before I left you. And later, I'll never forgive myself. But please don't hate me. Can't we just talk like human beings? One last time?" It was like watching someone unravel in real time. The guilt, the fear, the reflex to rewrite history. It was all there, unfiltered and exhausting. I read every word, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see it with clear eyes. She sent voice messages too. Played one just once. Her voice cracked, full of tears. "Kevin, I miss you. I'm so sorry. I didn't think. I thought you'd never find out. No, that's not what I mean. I didn't want to keep lying. I didn't know how to stop. And now it's like, I can't breathe knowing I lost you." I turned my phone off after that. The next morning, I returned from a run to find a paper bag leaning against my hotel door. Inside was a box of pastries from my favorite spot in town. The same ones Leah used to bring home on Sundays. Taped to the lid was a sticky note in her handwriting. "For your mornings." Like before, I left the box untouched. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a photo me exiting the hotel gym, snapped from across the lobby. The caption read, "So this is where you've been hiding." That was the first time I felt anger flare through the fog. She wasn't just apologizing anymore. She was tracking me, watching me, trying to guilt me into engagement. I replied for the first time in days. "Do not come here again. This is harassment. One more visit, one more message, and I'll file a police report. We're done, Leah. Let it be done." She didn't respond. Not immediately. That night, my attorney called. Leah had received the separation notice. "She didn't take it well," Linda said, calm as always. "She's not contesting yet, but she's asking for a meeting. Says she wants to negotiate fairly." I advised against direct contact. "Good," I said. "Keep it that way." But Leah had other plans. The following week, she showed up at my office. She brought coffee, my usual order, black with a splash of cream, and stood in the lobby like she belonged there. My coworkers didn't know what to do with her. She was charming, smiling, and pretending nothing was wrong. When word reached my desk, I didn't go down. I stayed seated, staring at my monitor, willing my heart to slow. She waited for 20 minutes. Then she left the coffee and a note with the receptionist. I know you don't want to see me, but I'll keep showing up until you believe how sorry I am. That night, I stared at the note for a long time. My hands were steady, but my mind felt like a storm. I remembered the scarf. I remembered the boxers. I remembered the smile she gave me the morning after it all. And I felt nothing. Not love. Not anger. Not pity. Just clarity. I knew why she was trying. Not because she regretted what she had done, but because she regretted what she had lost. The life. The image. The comfort. She had chosen someone else over me. Repeatedly. Deliberately. And now she wanted to rewind time. But this wasn't a movie. There was no pause button. No flashback montage. No last-minute fix. This was real. And real actions have real consequences. I never responded to the note. I didn't return the coffee. I didn't even look her way when I saw her car outside my building the next day. Leah was learning, slowly and painfully, that some bridges don't burn with fire. Some fall apart in silence. By the end of the month, the transfer came through. I relocated to Savannah, a quieter branch of the firm. No drama, no rumors, just a clean slate and new architecture projects that didn't come with emotional baggage. The riverfront apartment I found wasn't large, but it had a view of the water and wide windows that let in the light. That was all I needed. Mornings became mine again. I started running, just a few blocks at first, then miles. I picked up sketching, something I hadn't done since college. My apartment slowly filled with charcoal drawings and half-finished concepts. I didn't hang pictures from my old life. No wedding photos. No memories in frames. I wanted the walls to breathe. Then came Brooke. I met her at a print shop when I came in to scan blueprints. She wore simple jeans, an ink-stained apron, and the calmest expression I'd seen in months. There was no chase, no tension, just quiet conversation over project paper and copy machines. She never pried. I never overshared. We started getting coffee. Then walks. Then dinners that stretched into midnight talks on the riverbank. She had this way of listening, like silence didn't need to be filled, only respected. I never told her about Leah. Not in detail. Just that I had been married once and it ended. She nodded and left it there. And I appreciated that more than she'll ever know. With Brooke, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. I didn't have to dig up my scars to be understood. I was just Kevin. Rebuilding. Healing. Moving forward, one quiet step at a time. 6 months later, Leah found me. I don't know how, maybe through mutual friends or someone at my old job. A letter arrived, hand-addressed in the careful handwriting I used to know so well. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photograph. The letter was a full confession, no more dodging, no more justifications. She laid it out plainly, her feelings, her choices, the moments she betrayed both of us. She said she wasn't asking for anything. Just that I read her words. That I know she finally understood. The photo was of us 3 years ago, standing barefoot on a beach at sunset. We were holding hands, smiling like we had forever ahead of us. I held that photo for a long time. Then, without a word, I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. That night, I walked along the river with Brooke. The wind was gentle, the sky streaked with orange and violet. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't need to. For the first time, I realized something important. The scarf I found all those months ago, once a symbol of betrayal, wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Of freedom. Of clarity. Of me.